was a time that, Christmas actually was a very small window of time. Now it starts in July, doesn't it? And you start seeing stuff, it gets stretched out, but most folks wait until after Thanksgiving to start decorating your house. How many of you have started decorating your house? How many of you thought of Christmas a little bit? Maybe you put up a tinsel. Maybe just one tinsel. Well, I can tell you, I went to the East Carolina ball game yesterday. I came back and Pam had transformed our living room into a winter wonderland. Christmas trees set up, Santa Clauses are placed all over the room. We have a ton of Santa Clauses that we put out. The white snow, it looked beautiful. She had done a wonderful job. The nativity scene, right where it always goes, right over on the side. So we started preparing, as many of you do. And there's a story of a young man who was doing just that. He was a 3-year-old, and he was helping his mother set up the nativity scene. And with each piece he would take out and they would unwrap it, and he goes, and here's the donkey, and he placed it, because he had done this before. And he unwrapped it and said, and here's the king, and he placed that, and here's the camel, and he placed that, and he said, and finally got to the last piece, and he unwrapped it, and he said, and here's baby Jesus, all safe and secure in his car seat. And he put it on the Now, we know it wasn't a car seat. We know it was a manger. But from the eyes of a 3-year-old, it might look a little bit like a car seat. So we have to give him a little bit of due there on that. Even us as adults, we make mistakes with the manger scene, don't we? We oftentimes, if you look at most of manger scenes, and mine included, we have set up that you have a lot of things that really don't belong in a manger scene if you were going by the Bible. The wise men weren't there. Not the first time. They came a while later. Probably a long while later. They weren't even in the manger, the stable anymore. They had probably found shelter by that point. So the wise men don't belong in there. And the animals, well, I'm sure there were some animals there because it was a manger. It was a feeding trough, so somebody had to be eating out of the feeding trough. So I'm sure there were some animals, but it doesn't really say what animals were there in the Bible. But yeah, we have an assortment of animals there. Usually you'll see a cow or a donkey, and you might see, we see all kinds of things, right? So we make mistakes too as adults. We put things in there that really don't belong. But that's okay because they don't really take away from Christmas, do they? No, of course not. They just add to the Christmas story. It's just part of the Christmas story. It's just condensed into a smaller window there, right? So we know all the pieces of the story, the wise men coming. And sure, there were animals there. I'm sure there were. But many people will say, well, maybe you should just take those things away. They shouldn't be there. Let's just take them away. And I say, no, leave them. They're part of the Christmas story. And instead of taking away, some people say you want to add. You ought to add. I was reading this week, Reverend Aker had said, and he said, I've never seen a nativity scene with this character in it, but I think he belongs there because he has such a major part to do with the Christ story. He said, have you ever seen a nativity scene with a crazy-looking man with a beard, dressed in camel hair with a leather belt, probably got some locusts stuck in his teeth and some honey on his beard? Have you ever seen a nativity scene with that, with John the Baptist in it? I never have. You ever seen it? Is he in yours? No? Nobody's got John the Baptist in their nativity? Me either. But it's a very good point. He does add a lot to the story, right? Because while the angels announced Jesus to the shepherds, it was John the Baptist who announced him to the world. Do you remember that? In the book of John, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Do you remember that? It was John who announced Jesus to the world while the angels announced it to the shepherds. So maybe he does have a point there. Maybe he should be in the nativity scene, but if he wasn't in the nativity scene, he wouldn't be a grown man, would he? No, he's only about 6 months old. John was about 6 months older than Jesus, right? We're told that in the Bible. We're also told that he was Jesus' second cousin, if I get my family tree right. Mary and Elizabeth were cousins, and I think that maybe Jesus and John, second cousins. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. I'm not that good at that genealogy stuff. I think that's the way it works. But and we don't know a lot about John the Baptist. We know he was born to Zechariah and Elizabeth. An angel appeared to Zechariah and told him he was going to be a father, that Elizabeth was going to have a son, even though Elizabeth was well beyond her childbearing years. And we're told that Zechariah was speechless. I know a lot of dads who are speechless when they're told they're going to be dads. But his lasted until he was able to name his son John after he was born. So we have John the Baptist. We're also told that John the Baptist, while still not born, when Mary came to visit Elizabeth, her cousin, and announced the birth of that she was pregnant with Jesus, that John jumped for joy in his mother's stomach. That's about all we're told about John the Baptist. We're not told about his childhood, how he grew up. I don't know what games he played or what food he liked. Not sure. But if he was eating locusts and honey in his later years, I'm not sure I really want to know what he was eating as a child, because that's when we eat our crazy stuff, right? But anyway, all we know is all of a sudden he appears on the countryside. And he's preaching what? Repentance. He's preparing a way for Jesus. He's preparing the way for Jesus. And as we enter this holiday season, as we enter this Advent season, it's a time that we are to be getting prepared for the birth of Christ. And also reminded to be ready for Christ's second coming. Right? It's not about presents. Although I like presents. Does anybody not like presents? I like this. But anyway, but that's a side story. My wife tells me not to get off on those, so I won't go over there. But he tells us it's time that we need to stop putting ourselves first, man. That we need to start maybe focusing on what's separating us from God and clean that out. Prepare a place in your heart for God to dwell. That God's with us. That here he is, the Lamb of God. And we know he baptized Jesus. Even though he told Jesus he wasn't worthy to baptize Jesus. And Jesus said, well, you need to do it anyway. So he baptizes Jesus. And he announces Jesus to the public, those people who are standing on the banks. As I mentioned before, behold, the Lamb of God. But you know, the people weren't ready for the Lamb of God. Were they? They were looking for the wrong kind of Messiah. It had been prophesied by Isaiah years ago that a Messiah was coming. But they were looking for a different type of Messiah. They were looking for someone who would free them from Roman rule, that would restore them to the glory days when David was king. When it seemed like they were on top of the world. They didn't want to be an enslaved people. They didn't want to be a people that had an occupying force dwelling among them, dictating to them what they could do and what they couldn't do. They were looking for somebody who would free them. And God sent them somebody who would free them, but not from what they were looking for. He sent them Jesus Christ to free them from the bondages of sin, from the penalty of sin, which is death. But they didn't know what they had in front of them. Oftentimes I wonder if we wonder. I didn't say that. Sometimes I wonder if we don't mistake Christmas a little bit and get a little sidetracked on what it's all about. I'm reminded of a story of a young man who was in the hospital. He was going to be there for a long time. He had been there already for a while. And hospitals aren't fun places. I don't know anybody who goes to the hospital for fun. Let's go hang out at the ER. I hear they're blowing up hands and they're making a party. It's this great time. They'll put you in this machine, they'll x-ray you. It's good stuff. Then they come around and they stick you, with needles. It's fun. It's my favorite thing to do. I hang out there all the time. My grandson they had to take him to the doctor this weekend. My daughter said he looked the nurse square in the face. They had to take blood, and he said, "You hurt me, and I don't like you." I wonder how hard it is to be a nurse. To try to help people and doctors and try to help people and know that And sometimes they get stuck, and sometimes it's not a fun place to be. But that's getting down a different road. But this young man was in this hospital, and he had a little bit dreary, and he noticed one day that everybody was cleaning up, which isn't unusual for a hospital. Hospitals are fairly clean places, but they had a smile on their face. They seemed really happy, and there seemed to be a little pep in their step. And he said, "What's going on?" He said, "Why is everybody so busy cleaning, and what's the occasion?" They said, "The king's coming." He said, "Why?" He said, "Yeah, the king is in town and has decided to come and visit this hospital." The little boy was a little excited. So he went and took a bath and put on a clean set of pajamas because he wanted to look right when the king came. And he sat on his bed and he waited, and morning turned to afternoon, or early afternoon turned a little bit later. And about mid-afternoon, a couple of men came in some suits and talked to the people in the room and smiled. This one man came up and shook his hand and asked him questions about how he was doing and how he felt, and talked to him about himself for a while, and then smiled and said it was great to see him, and left and went on his way. And again, the boy sat on the bed and he waited for the king. And he waited, and soon it became late afternoon. And then nighttime came, and a sad face came over the boy's face. And the nurse came and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong with you? Why are you so sad?" He said, "The king never came. The king never showed up. They told me the king was coming, and he never made it." He said, "Did those men come in here in suits earlier today? Do you remember them?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "That was the king." He said, "That can't be the king. He didn't have a crown on his head." You know, I wonder how many times we're waiting for the king to come with a crown on his head, and we miss his presence. You know, the people of that day were looking for something special. They were looking for a king that would lead them to a military victory. God sent them something more important. Something they needed and didn't know they needed. Something that would reconcile them to Him through their belief in Him. He sent Jesus Christ. What a wonderful gift. The gift that keeps on giving. The gift that's been given for years and years and years, and will continue to give as long as we, me, you, I, will spread the good news of the gospel and tell the story that Jesus came and lived and died so that everyone could spend eternity. You remember that rope Pam pulled out here? That's a good example. That we can't even count how long eternity is. We can't even imagine a number with that many zeros in it. Although sometimes if we look at the national debt, we're starting to get a pretty good picture. But that's another side of it. But eternity is a long, long, long time. And because Christ has come, because of the gift of Jesus Christ, because we are waiting to celebrate the birth of Jesus, and we're also waiting for that second coming, when Christ will come back and will call to Him His own. Won't He? Can you be counted upon in that number? Have you made that decision? Have you embraced Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? I certainly hope so. And if you have, I hope you're spreading the good news. I hope you're telling your friends. I hope you're telling your relatives. I hope you're telling strangers. And maybe not by words, but maybe you'll sit there and you'll act a little different. Maybe you act a little different than the world acts. Maybe you don't concentrate on you, but you concentrate on somebody else. Maybe you don't say, well, what's in it for me? But you say, what's in it for we? For all the people. How can I make this a better place? How can I encounter somebody and make their day a better day? That's a pretty easy question, isn't it? That's kind of a change of heart for a lot of folks. And that's kind of what we need to work on, the way we perceive things as we approach this Christmas season. You know, there's a story of a lady whose child was in the Christmas play. And she was excited because she knew her 6-year-old Billy had a lot of talent. And she couldn't wait. She was hoping he would get the part of Joseph. She couldn't wait to teach him his lines and make sure that everything went right. But when they cast the play, he got the part of a wise man. Well, that was okay. She was determined she was going to make him the very best wise man that the church had ever seen. And she built him, or made him an elaborate costume, complete with a big old gruffy beard, so that he would look wise. Yeah. And the play day came, and sure enough, Billy did an outstanding job. He stood up there and sang those songs like nobody's business. And she was so proud of him. And afterwards she came up and she hugged him. And she said, "You've done a wonderful job. You've learned all those songs. I saw you singing all those songs. You did fantastic." And about that time, the lady who was conducting the play asked for their attention. She said, "We're trying to build a chest of costumes. And if you folks would be kind enough to donate the costumes of your children, we would have them for next year to make the play a little easier to put on." And, you know, even though she was busy, she said, "Sure, let's do that. Let me help you out of that. Let's get you changed out of this costume. We'll donate it. Well, we got a lot of stuff to do, so we're in a hurry." So they took off the costume, but Billy wouldn't take off his beard. She said, "Now come on, I need the beard so we can give it to him so it will be a complete set. So they'll have the whole costume for next year." He's like, "I can't give the beard up." He said, "Why can't you give the beard up?" He said, "Well, I got a confession to make." He said, "You know when I was up there and I was singing those songs?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, I never really learned those songs." He said, "But with this beard on, I could move my lips and you thought I was singing those songs." How many of us go through the Christmas season going through the motions of singing those songs, but we don't really know the words? Billy's mother's thought about her busy schedule. She realized that she too was going through the motions. She realized that she too was doing all the hoopla and buying into all the hoopla of Christmas, but had forgotten the real meaning of the season. Forgot the real meaning of what we were celebrating. She had forgotten the song, the Christmas song. Do you know the Christmas song? Do you know the Christmas story? Do you know what it's all about? Do you know why we celebrate Christmas? Or is it just another passing holiday in which you exchange gifts with people, which exchanging gifts is nice. We all like getting gifts. Sometimes we don't like giving gifts as much as we like giving gifts, but we all like gifts, right? Have we gotten caught up in that? The parades, the Black Friday. You know, I was amazed at every year, Black Friday, you sit home and you wait for the 6 o'clock news to come on so you can see all the fights that happen at Black Friday. Because every year there's somebody going to fight over a TV. You know, like that TV wasn't there yesterday. Is that good? And the battery went dead. So I'll do the best. I'm almost done. So that's God saying, "Shut up, kiddies." But it's amazing how we can sit there and give thanks to God for all the stuff we have, and just a few hours later we're fussing and fighting over trying to get to Best Buy and get something else. It always amazes me. Because I think we've lost the reason for the season. I think we've lost the reason we're supposed to celebrate. And perhaps we too should follow the words of John: repent and prepare a place in our hearts for Jesus Christ to come back. Prepare a place to celebrate this season and welcome that love that God has shown on us through His Son, Jesus Christ, who came and He walked among us and He taught us how we're supposed to act. He didn't just say it, He taught us how we're supposed to act. He showed us how we're supposed to treat each other. Maybe we too should welcome that into our hearts and open ourselves up to be a reflection of the light that God has blessed us with in Jesus Christ. His life and His sacrifice. If we take that in and we shine that out into the world would be a better place. And we too could feel the reason for the season. And all God's people said, Amen.